Some exciting news. The state of North Carolina looks like they're about to pass a budget. Finally, after 3 years, we get a brand new state budget. But keep in mind, it's only good for 1 year, and they'll be at this again next spring. Woohoo! Our county commissioners approved the Cumberland County School Board's budget request. I'll bet it's about $4.5 million less than that was requested. But let's get into the numbers. Let's talk about some things that you may not necessarily hear on the local news or read about in your City View or Fayetteville Observer. So here in Cumberland County, our school board asked for a little over $110 million, and the county came back with $105.8 million. Now, that sounds like an increase, and technically it is. The district will receive about $2 million more than last year. But what here's a lot of people don't realize is that $2 million is already spent before the kids even walk through the door. $500,000 goes toward higher utility costs. Almost $400,000 is going to go to paying our charter school obligations that we have to pay as required by state law. Oh, didn't know that. Yes, we have to pay money to charter schools. About 1.1 million, is going to go for principal, assistant principal, state mandated salary increases, which those are good things. But in other words, the money isn't creating new opportunities for students. It's simply helping the district keep up with the cost. And those costs continue to rise every single year. And that's not expansion, that's just maintenance. And once Raleigh finalizes its budget, Cumberland County stands to have to dish out another $875,000 to cover employee bonuses for staff that's not covered by the state budget. They may also need to shift around $1.3 million for technology improvements and upgrades. So that's the reality that our local school district is having to deal with. We thank the county commissioners for funding almost the budget, but still came up short. So now let's talk about the budget coming from Raleigh. There are definitely some positive things coming with this budget out of Raleigh. I mean, if you're a brand new teacher, you stand to come in at $48,000. That's not a bad deal if you're a brand new teacher. There's also going to be some advanced teacher role supplements that are coming, science of reading training, mathematic diagnostic tools, career workforce development, school safety improvements, AED funding, AI standards and literacy and whatnot. Those are all worthwhile things that are definitely needed, helping children read and preparing students for careers and keeping schools safe and supporting teacher leadership. These are all great things that we should support, but let's examine the things that were not highlighted. You've probably heard that the average teacher raise is 8%, and that sounds impressive, but averages can sometimes hide important details. Yes, beginning teachers absolutely deserve a significant pay increase coming into this profession. Recruiting young educators is essential. But what about the teachers who have devoted 20 or 30 years to our children? Teachers with 15 to 24 years of experience top out at roughly $56,800. And teachers with more than 25 years, around $59,000. Think about that. These are the teachers that are mentoring the new teachers that are coming in. And if we're serious about retaining our excellent teachers, we've got to reward experience, not just recruitment. This budget also includes bonuses. Bonuses for teachers, principals, custodians, nutrition staff, retirees. And while every educator appreciates being recognized, bonuses are temporary. Bonuses help this year. Salaries help every year. And most educators would gladly give away their one-time bonus for a stronger permanent salary growth that follows throughout their careers and even into retirement. There's another issue that deserves our attention, and this is what I dealt with constantly as a teacher and as a school administrator. Schools are asked to do more every single year. This budget from the state adds requirements, literacy requirements, new math screenings, artificial intelligence instruction, which that's a needed for sure, reading plans, professional development, additional reporting requirements. And many of these initiatives have merit. But here's the question: are we providing schools with the people, the time, and the resources necessary to implement all of these new expectations? Love the unfunded mandates that constantly come our way as educators, because every new mandate requires planning, training, meetings, documentation, data collection, accountability, implementation. And teachers didn't enter education just because they love paperwork. They came into education because they love children. If we're going to continue to ask schools to do more, we must give them the support necessary to succeed. Another area that deserves our attention, and I've done a video on this before, is our low wealth counties. We are one of them. Beginning the 27-28 school year, low wealth funding is going to be capped at current funding levels. Now think about that for just a second. What happens when inflation increases? Because you know that it will. What happens when health insurance costs increase? Because you know that will. What happens when transportation becomes more expensive? Because what? You know it will. What happens when student needs become greater? Because why? It's going to happen. What happens when enrollment changes? We're trying to increase our enrollment here in Cumberland County. What happens when the funding cap doesn't stop costs from increasing? It simply limits the state's willingness to help. Over time, that creates winners and losers. And historically, it's our rural and our economically challenged communities that struggle the most, specifically even here in Cumberland County. Every child deserves the opportunity to receive an outstanding education, regardless of their zip code. And finally, let's talk about the thing that I can't stand: opportunity scholarships. Let's talk about this little nugget. The budget is redirecting $35.8 million in opportunity scholarship savings back to public schools. That sounds like good news, but then you've got to ask the question behind the question. Why are there savings? Because voucher students often receive less than the state average public school funding. That's why. Meanwhile, the voucher program itself is continuing to expand while traditional public schools continue to educate the overwhelming majority of North Carolina's children. And this raises an important policy question. Should our long-term priority be strengthening public schools that educate nearly every community in North Carolina? Or should we continue to expand programs that shift public dollars to private education? I know this budget has some really good things that is out there: higher starting teacher pay, investments in literacy, career and technical education, school safety, technology, teacher leadership. These are all important things that we need to have in our public schools. But we also need to continue to acknowledge the challenges. Veteran teachers still deserve better compensation. Local districts continue to struggle dealing with the rising operational costs. Schools face increasing mandates. Low wealth counties face uncertainty. And public schools continue carrying the responsibility of educating the overwhelming majority of North Carolina's children. Good policy isn't measured by press releases. It's measured by whether classrooms are stronger, whether teachers stay, whether students succeed, whether communities thrive. As someone who spent over 3 decades serving students, teachers, and families, I believe we owe it to every child to look beyond the headlines and ask the difficult questions, because education isn't about politics. It's about our future. Thanks for watching, and as always, let's continue to work together to ensure every child has the opportunity to succeed.